Hi guys, welcome to So Fantastic with Tiwa Avanti. I'll be showing you how to draft a pinafore dress pattern today. This is a fun way to switch up your wardrobe. So it's also a timeless style. You can tweak it and style it however you want to, and you will still look on trend. So let's jump right in. For this pinafore, I won't be using my Natalie braid bodies at all because it's not really necessary, as the style doesn't require any tightening whatsoever. Fold your fabric or paper into two so that you can cut the front and the back piece together. Mark half of your shoulder measurement. My shoulder is 15, so half of that is 7.5. Mark the neck width that you want for your pinafore. For me, I'm going to use 5 inches, and I'm working with a neck depth of 8 inches. It's going to be a V-shaped neckline. So on the shoulder point, mark 0.5 down and connect to the neck width. Alright, this will be your shoulder slant. Also connect the neck width to the neck depth just to shape the neckline. And then next, you mark your shoulder to waist measurement. So I didn't shape the armhole or any of that because we don't need that for our pinafore. So next, measure your shoulder to bust, okay, and rule across, and on that line measure how wide you want the pinafore to be. So I'm going to work with 4 here so that when I cut unfold it becomes 8 inches, and also add a 1 inch seam allowance to it. So I think that will be fine. So at the waist, I'm marking 3 plus 1 inch seam allowance, so I have 4 there. The next thing to do now is to connect all of your points. So for the back, I'm going to lower the neckline of the back all the way to the waist, so and I want it to be like straight, the way suspenders look. So I'm just going to make it straight all the way down, but a little bit slant, so it has that V shape too. I don't want to do much at this back at all because I don't want to have to add any zip or whatever to it. But for your pattern, you can do this however you like. You don't have to do it exactly like this. If you have any style in mind, just adapt and make your changes accordingly. So when cutting also, you cut the main fabric and then you cut your lining the same way. And alright, so we're done with the upper part of the whole outfit. Okay, so for the lower part of this garment, mark the zip allowance out. I'm going to border the paper. I'll just mark 1 inch up and rule. This border line becomes the waistline, and then from the waistline, mark your waist to hip measurement down and rule across. So this will be your hip line, and then mark 3 inches down from the hip line, also rule across. This is going to be the crunch line, and so you go up to the waist and measure your waist to breaking point measurement. I'm using 17 inches, and like I mentioned in the other video, if your client is really tall, you can measure between 19 to 21 inches, but most people 17 inches will be good for them. The next line we need is the waist to knee measurement, and finally the skirt length. So because this dress is a midi dress, just go a little lower than the knee measurement. Okay, and also label your lines if you wish. I have the waist, the hip, the crunch, I have the breaking point, the knee line, and finally the hemline. Now let's impute our horizontal measurements. On the waist, mark half of your waist measurement plus a 1.5 inch seam allowance. On the hip line, mark half of your hip measurement plus 1.5 inch seam allowance too. So transfer the hip measurement plus the seam allowance to the crunch line. Now at the breaking point line, on the breaking point line, subtract 2 inches from the measurement on the crunch line. So mark that here and transfer the same measurement to the knee line and the skirt length. So connect all the points as shown. So the next thing to do now is to lower the waistline by 0.5 inch. And also at the side, raise the waistline by 0.5. Connect both points. So we're done with the front pattern. Now for the back pattern, you need to do some contouring. So you do this to ensure that the skirt curves nicely around the hips and the bum when the whole garment is worn. At the waist, with your curved ruler, blend into the hip line. It doesn't have to really get to the hip line, okay? Just blend into nothing. All right, and ensure that the curve is smooth. Also, from the breaking point, connect to the hip line with your curved ruler. So you can see how this creates a beautiful bum illusion on the back pattern. So this is what makes, like I said earlier, this makes the bum sit very well into the garment when it's worn, and it creates that, gives you that nice fit. So you need to add the zip allowance that you eliminated on this side back at the side front. So just mark out your zip allowance on the side and connect back to your hip so that the back piece is not smaller than the front. When cutting, I'm not going to cut this zip allowance part with the back, so I'm going to cut it off completely and just cut into the bum illusion all the way to the waist. Since we eliminated the zip allowance on the center back, we have to add it back to the side of the skirt pattern. If not, the back will be smaller than the front and the garment will not be, it will be too tight and it will not even be wearable. So at the side of the skirt from the hem, I'm going to add back the seam allowance. So whatever you used, the zip allowance rather, so whatever you marked as your zip allowance is what you should add again all the way to the breaking point, and then I'll rule all the way down. So you can now go ahead to cut out your skirt pieces. So because of the slit in front of the skirt, I'm going to now use this skirt pattern to cut another paper unfold. Okay, so now for the band of this skirt, measure out the band width. 2 to 4 inches is good for a normal band. Okay, so measure down, rule, and also at the back too, measure the same thing. Whatever you mark for the band in front, mark it at the back too. So we're going to work on the side that we want the slit to be. So for me, I usually like for the slit to kind of align with my dart line. So I'm just going to mark my half of my dart measurement here, so that I will have a straight line to mark my slit on. So from the side of the pattern, just mark 4 inches or half of your dart measurement. Okay, so mark that in. So using the 4 inches mark as a reference, on that line now, mark your waist to slit measurement. You can make it as high as you want, or you can make it lower. So whatever you want, mark it. So now from the hem of the skirt, slash all the way to the waist to slit that you marked. It doesn't look wide now, it doesn't really look like a slit, but when you finish off the raw edge of this slit, you know, with your lining or whatever you want to use, the slit is going to open up more. So I hope that you enjoyed this one. I hope that you learned something from it that you can apply when you're working on your own projects. Thanks a lot for sticking with me from the beginning to this point of this video. Stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next one.